Good morning, PD. You're listening to Live and Local Mornings for Florence and the PD on Live 95.
Welcome back to Good Morning PD Live 95. I want to thank our sponsor, Tuesday morning, every Tuesday morning, QAT. I want to congratulate the Godfrey brothers and all over at QAT for 40 years of being in business. If a family can stay together for 40 years, that's pretty cool. If a family can stay together and be in business with one another for 40 years, that is astounding and unbelievable, because I've lived a good bit of that in my personal and professional life.
This blue law discussion, and you just gave a list of examples from states all across the country, but it boils down, it's not all about alcohol.
It has very
sales.
little to do with drinking as far as I'm concerned. I can't speak for others. This has very little to do with drinking. This goes back to what Larry said. Are we a free people or not?
I thought Larry's call was so interesting.
It was great. I mean, because Larry spoke to when the culture was a certain way, blue laws were there to make sure you conform to our culture. And now the culture in America is a little bit different. I'm freaked out about the culture, but it is what it is. And they're using, I go back to the word weaponizing. They're weaponizing the government in the exact way we have done for a long, long time, in forcing people who may not share our faith to abide and subscribe to our values. And that's my problem. It's not about drinking. This has, as far as I'm concerned, this has nothing to do with drinking. This has everything to do with what government's role is. And I just don't think the fundamental role of government is to force a set of values of one group of people onto another group of people. And I think that's what blue laws do. I'm a Christian. I know what Sunday means to me. I don't need a blue law to tell me what Sunday means. But for whatever reason, we had a group of people who said, well, we see the world this way. We believe this. And we're going to try to make everybody else believe exactly what we do and abide and live by the same, writings and scripture and living pronouncements that we do. And that's just not the role of government. I just fundamentally am opposed to that. And I just think that when government starts operating in the realm of social engineering, and it's done it. I mean, we do it a lot. Look at all the entitlement programs we've got. Look at some of the assistance programs. That's social engineering. Well, to some degree, the blue laws are social engineering. Well, we live in a country where the majority of us profess to be Christians. I'm strong on the profess. The profession of that faith leads you down a certain road. That certain road forces you to believe that Sunday's different or not. Now, the Jews believe Saturday is the Sabbath. I'll be honest with you. Historically and from a calendar perspective, they're probably right. So let's use real world examples as something we can base our argument on. Let's say you're a Jewish person operating a business in Florence County. Hypothetically, I'm being very hypothetical here. You're somebody who is of Jewish belief. You believe Saturday's the Sabbath. You make a commitment because of your religious belief that you're not going to open on Saturday because your religion tells you that's a day to be set aside and not work. So you don't work on Saturday because of your religious belief, and then the government says, well, guess what? You can't work on Sunday either because we say you can't. So there's 2 days a week there. Now, a lot of our work lives are Monday through Friday, but people that own retail establishments and restaurants and things like that, they understand exactly what I'm talking about. The majority of their work weeks are at least 6 days, in most cases 7 days. So you got somebody who believes in a God. They base their life on their faith, and their faith tells them that I'm not going to work on Saturday. And the government comes in and says, well, you're choosing not to work on Saturday. We're choosing that you can't work on Sunday. That's not the role of government. And I said it earlier, this is not about buying beer or not, buying liquor or not, drinking in a restaurant or not. This is a matter of freedom and liberty. And I go back to the fundamental debate I've had on this show numerous times with myself and our listeners. The Constitution was not intended to protect government from people. It was to protect people from government. And the separation of church and state it's kind of a two-way street. I don't want government telling me I got to go to church and what church I got to go to, nor do I want the government meddling into church's business. I do believe this. I think Roger's onto something. I think as the church evolves, and here's where I was headed a second ago, and I didn't want to go that far because I'll make somebody aggravated, and I don't have any interest in that. But as the church evolves into something other than just a worship place, when it becomes a commercial entity, I think you need to seriously explore not whether it needs to be tax exempt. I think absolutely the church is fair game when they choose to not be the beacon of hope, the shining light, the helper of their community. When they choose to be something other than that, I do believe they should be dealt with as a private enterprise. And a lot of you listening know exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, the churches that, I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday about, and we're debating the blue laws and the Sabbath and our faith and, what it means to us in relation to whether or not we should drink. Listen, if there were a blackboard on this wall and on one side it said drinking and the other side, don't drink. I mean, the pros and cons, history is clear. We're far better off not drinking. But we have a free will. That's the beauty of who we are and what we experience. We have the opportunity to make choices in our life. And if someone makes a choice to go to a grocery store and buy a six-pack of beer on Sunday morning, the government shouldn't be there to tell them they can or can't. I mean, I will defend that with my last breath. That's not government's job. That's not the federal government's job. That's not the state's government job. And that's not the local government's job. That is a matter of the heart. And if your heart and your soul and your compulsion says it's okay for me to go into a grocery store and buy a six-pack of beer while you're in church at 11 o'clock Sunday morning, then government has no role in that as far as I'm concerned. And I still go back to my fundamental argument. Why do we need a law to tell us what a day of the week means? You know what it means. I know Roger well enough to know exactly what it means to Roger. A lot of you that call in here, I don't know that well. Roger and I grew up together. I know exactly what Sunday means to Roger. I know it pretty much exactly how Roger was raised. He knows pretty much exactly how I was raised. I said much earlier. My Sundays were of the nostalgic sort. I mean, I went to church on Sunday morning. I went to eat. We called it dinner. I know now we've gotten fancy and it's lunch and dinner instead of dinner and supper. But we ate dinner at my grandmother's. We went back home. We played a little bit of whatever we played. We went to church on Sunday night. We went to bed. We got up and went to school. That was the way my Sundays were. And I liked it like that. But I've got to realize that everybody isn't wired like I'm wired. Everybody wasn't raised like I was raised. Everybody doesn't share the same faith I share, the same values I share. Sunday means something different to some people. And the government shouldn't say, well, Sunday's got to mean the same thing to you as it does to them. That's not the role of, and I don't know how anybody rationalizes that. I have no idea how you, as somebody who considers themselves to be a conservative and a limited government guy, I don't know how you rationalize that. I don't know how you square that up. That because I believe one thing and a subset of our population believes one thing, and the Sabbath is Sunday, and Sunday is to be distinguished from the other 6 days of the week. And we're going to make those that don't distinguish that day live under the same distinguishment that we live under. That's not the role of government. That's never been the role of government. And if that is the role of government, to Larry's point, you're going to end up with a lot of nuances. And when the culture shifts and change, guess what? Here comes things that you find deeply offensive, and guess what our response will be? Well, that's not the role of government. I mean, the role of government shouldn't tell people they can take showers together or must take showers together or can go to the restroom together or must go to the restroom together. That's not the role of government. But it was perfectly fine when the role of government said, you've got to live like we do. Screw that. Take a break. Back in a minute. Thanks to QAT. Visit their website, teamqat.com.